It's a good book, yeah.
He never
Oh.
agreed to it. So the kids
I haven't finished reading it yet, but I'm more than halfway through.
As he starts to make his way to the barman pulls a pistol on him. But then one of the older men in the bar says something to the barman, and the barman decides that I guess this isn't worth killing the kid.
I genuinely hate the way that pigs look in this
down
texture
the
pack. They
gun,
look fucking
picks up a hammer,
nasty.
and walks around
I love this
the
texture
bar
pack.
to fight
I
Well,
don't
the kid.
that's why I'm
like-
having to download a bunch
I
of
just don't
shit.
like the way that pigs
Fucking
look in
fingers.
this.
Breaks it over the guy's head, and it's not explicitly said
You should
that
see the way
kills him,
cows
it says
look.
that
You
the
should
kid
see the way
I
bees
just
look,
found it.
actually.
I do want to see what
It's a
it is.
spider.
I found a cow. I'm trying to kill a cow.
No,
I'm
I
trying to get some
want him.
After drinking the
What,
entire
cow?
bottle, he then wakes up
Okay.
the next day in
You sure didn't want him
abandoned,
anymore.
rundown church.
Yeah, 'cause you
Churches
ruined
come up
him.
a lot in this story,
You
You
fucking-
I
ruined
was
it.
gonna leave him.
There's death involved. This
No.
time being the first and most
Alright.
minor infraction, where the
I
kid
guess not.
sees buzzards eating some dead animal at the front of the building. The kid drunkenly stands up, looks around for his mule and can't find it, so he just starts walking down the river until he runs into it. Eventually he finds his mule, and while he's at the river, he decides to take his clothes off and take a bath. While he's naked and lying on the riverbank, an American soldier walks up to him. So while
Nice.
talking through the branches on the side of the river, "Howdy there," said the rider. He didn't answer. He moved to the side to see better through the branches. "Howdy there. Where you at? What do you want?" "I wanted to talk to you." "What about?" "Hellfire,
just
come
wanna
on down.
talk to
I'm
you."
white and Christian."
I just want to talk to him.
The kid reaching up through the willows trying to get his britches. The belt was hanging down and he tugged at it, but the britches were hung on a limb. "Why don't you go on and leave me the hell alone? Just wanted to talk to you. Didn't intend to get y'all riled
I just
up.
want to talk
You
to
done
him.
got me riled."
I just want to talk to him.
I just want to.
"Was you the fella
So,
knocked
where you
in
at?
that mixer's head yesterday evening?"
Oh, you're right.
"I ain't the law.
Underground.
Who wants to know?" "Captain White. You wants to sign that feller up to join
Oh,
the
there.
army." "The army?"
Tyler,
"Yes,
get
sir."
in the sack.
"What army?" "Company under Captain White.
No, I'm good.
Gonna whip
Get
up
in
all
the sack.
Mexicans."
Get in the sack.
Hey, can you not come in
Hey, I'm
here and steal
drowning.
all my
"Where
shit?
you at?"
I'm
"Captain
not.
White
I'm
trying to get you to get in the sack.
Is this a new?
Or the filibuster.
This is a new
It's
world?
a brand new world, guys.
Oh, good. Because fuck that old world. Fuck that old world. Everything I was in. Burn it all the fuck down.
Weren't even that present for it.
I was. I was there
In the
for
end, you are.
the
How
Christmas.
did that world end?
That's bullshit. Shut up. I was there in the beginning and at Christmas and everything like that.
Jacob's birthday
Shout out
present,
to
or Jacob's Christmas present.
Birthday present, yeah.
What was Jacob's Christmas
It's a
present?
chance for you to raise
This
your
We
house-
raped his house.
This house
Oh
got
God.
covered in
Snow
that,
and shit.
whatever it was. And then we blew it up and burned it down.
We'll find you one.
Great time.
What about wages? Hellfire, son. You won't need no wages.
I'll
You
take
get to
one.
keep everything you can raise. We going to Mexico. Spoils of war. Ain't a man in the company won't come out a big landowner. How much land you want now? I don't know nothing about soldiering. The man eyed. He took the unlit cigar from his teeth and turned his head and spat and put it back again. Where you from? He said. Tennessee. Tennessee. Well, I don't misdoubt what you can shoot a rifle. I like that. That's good. So the man explains to him that the purpose that a lot of them are doing it is because it's war. They're plunderers, effectively. You can steal whatever you want, like a pirate. And after hearing that he'll get money and some clothes and a horse out of it, the kid's like, sure, I'll go die to kill some Mexicans. Who cares? I mean, the kid killed someone over a bottle of whiskey and was willing to die so he wouldn't step in the mud. I don't really think he has any creed or purpose to fighting. It's just he gets new clothes. We rarely get mentions of the story of, like I said earlier, the kid's mental state or what's going
That's
on.
an
in his
armadillo?
head.
Okay.
But we get a weird mention of Shane right here whenever the kid goes to meet Captain White, the one putting together the filibuster regiment. When they meet, it says, the captain nodded his head and was looking the kid over. What happened to you? What? Say, sir, said the recruiter. Sir. I said, what happened to you? The kid looked at the man sitting next to him. He looked down at himself, and he looked at the captain again. I was fell on by robbers, he said. Robbers, said the captain. Took everything I had, took my watch and everything. Have you got a rifle? Not no more, I ain't. Where was it you were robbed? I don't know. There wasn't no name to it. It was just a wilderness. Where were you it's coming from Nacogdoches? Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How many were there? The kid stared at him. Robbers. How many robbers? 7 or 8, I reckon. I got busted in the head with a scalpel. The captain squinted one eye at him. Were they Mexicans? The captain, as we're going to see, just has hate in his heart, not much else. But the kid looks at the rags he's wearing, the fact he has no clothes or money, and decides to lie. He doesn't just say, this is how I am. As it seems, he doesn't care about anything, but he does have some sense of self-pride because he was not willing to admit that. He instead says that he was recently robbed, and that's why he looks the way he does. There are brief instances of the kid's humanity, or at least his relatability throughout the story, and this is one of them. The captain, after talking about how fine soldiers from Tennessee are, says, the captain leaned forward. We fought for them, lost friends and brothers down there, talking about the Mexican-American War. And then, by God, if we didn't give it back to a bunch of barbarians that even the most biased in their favor will admit have no least notion in God's earth of honor or justice or the meaning of republican government. A people so cowardly, they've paid tribute 100 years to tribes of naked savages, giving up their crops and livestock. Mine shut down. Whole villages abandoned. While a heathen horde rides over the land, looting and killing with total impunity. Not a hand raised against them. What kind of people are these? The Apaches won't even shoot them. Did you know that? They kill them with rocks. The captain shook his head. He seemed made sad by what he had to tell. The captain continues later and says, what we are dealing with, he said, is a race of degenerates, a mongrel race, little better than black people, and maybe no better.
Have to lock in.
We're dealing with a people manifestly incapable of
That's
governing
awesome.
themselves. And do you know what happens with people who
That's
cannot
my
govern
silly
themselves?
guy.
That's right. Others come in to govern for them. So we see here, while the kid and seemingly the soldier he talked to by the river are kind of in it for the money, the first thing he incentivized him with is, oh, we're going to keep whatever we got in Mexico. This Captain White genuinely has a purpose to go there, even if that purpose is to just murder Mexican people. But it is a stark contrast how the kid and most characters we're going to see later in the story just operate by their own greed and ideas. The captain has a reason or a calling to what he's doing rather than just his temporary incentive of greed or lust. And we're going to see very shortly
The game
this
still runs
story
like shit.
thinks
Good
of
to know.
people who have purpose and motives and emotion. So after this, the boy goes out with 2 other boys from the filibuster company, and the captain has given them money to get a saddle, new boots, and new clothes. After they do that, the boys spend the extra money on women and booze. But as they get to one bar, it says that an old Mennonite is sitting in the corner. He begins to speak to them. They'll stop you at the river, he says. The second corporal looks past his comrades. Are you talking to me? At the river, be told. They'll jail you to a man. Who will? The United States Army, General Worth. Hell they will. Pray that they will. He looks at his comrades. He leans towards the Mennonite. What does that mean, old man? Do you cross the river with yon filibuster armed? Will not cross it back. Don't aim to cross it back. We go into Sonora. What's it to you, old man? The Mennonite watches the in-shadow dark before them as it is reflected to him.
What's
in
it
the mirror.
to ya?
He turns to them. His eyes are wet. He speaks slowly. The wrath of God lies sleeping. It was hid 1,000,000 years before men were, and only men have power to waken. Hell ain't half full. Hear me. You carry war of a madman's making onto a foreign land. You'll wake more than the dogs. So far, we've had the preacher who says that God goes with you everywhere, like it or not. We've had the hermit who says man has infinite capacity for evil, and we have the Mennonite who says that if they journey into this other land, they're going to wake the wrath of God. And it seems that part of that wrath was awakened that night, because as the 3 boys get drunk, they get into a pointless bar fight, and one of them is killed. That morning, as the kid and the other soldiers stand in front of their fallen comrade.
Actually, I believe he was face down with a fucking hole in his stomach.
There's no such joy in the tavern.
If I remember
as upon the road
correctly.
thereto. In other words, the death of this boy is just one of many if you continue on this path. After this, the gang of filibusters begin to travel south with the kid in their ranks. They are immediately infinitely out of their depth. Only a few days of walking, they haven't even ran into combat yet, and they're already near dehydrated and at the end of their limits. 4 of them die of sickness a week in, before they've came into contact with any enemy. It says that as they bury their dead and leave the bones of the food they eat behind, that a pack of coyotes has just started following them across the desert and eats and digs up whatever they leave behind. So even nature itself.
I've spent the last fucking 10 minutes digging this hole, and you just fucking find it here?
Yeah.
And they go up to it.
Go fuck yourself, man. Go away. Find your own cave.
What do you mean? I just found this cave.
All that they find there is an old man who was hiding from them, and he's like curled up on the ground, babbling.
Can't
It
find
says he
shit other
wets
than fucking
himself.
copper in here.
And Captain White looks at him and just says he's a half-wit and to get him out of there, and they just leave. The hypocrisy that's kind of mentioned in the writing of the story is that Captain White is both there to free and establish government for the people of Mexico, while also talking about how much he hates the people of Mexico. Like every interaction he has with them is, half-wit or saying that they're barbarians or what have you. But he also talks about how his war is justified because he's really doing it all to help them. He is not only a man of principle, but a man of intrinsically flawed principle. Which even that is rare out here, as we'll soon see. Another element of the story, whenever people talk about it as, the great American novel...
God, I hate Mexicans, dude.
Me too.
It's hard to explain unless you read it.
Jesus, did they make the creeper scarier now? I don't recall them looking like that. That's new.
And I don't want to
I think they're a little different looking.
but it's almost like some of the wording transcends nature.
Yeah, no, they thought that it
Texture,
looked
what?
The story, a
Huh?
Like, there's so many beautiful sections of the story that
I don't
talk about
get it.
nature, but one right here
I don't
that
get it.
describes the environment as this gang of filibusters making their way across the desert is a good example. They rode on, and the sun in the east flushed pale streaks of light, and then a deeper red color.
Well, I got a new golden helmet with projectile protection 3 on it.
Flaring flame
Wow.
where the earth drained up into the sky at the edge of creation. The top of the sun rose out of nothing like the head of a great red phallus until it cleared
never
the
know.
unseen rim and sat squat and pulsing
Guess not.
malevolent behind them.
Kyle
The
hates me.
shadows
Fuck.
of the smallest
'Cause he's evil.
stars lay like pencil lines across the sand, and the shapes of the men and their mounts advanced elongate before them.
I'm not fucking dead. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know why the spawn is in the
Yay, I'm
middle
not
of
the
a...
first death of this playthrough for once.
Fuck you.
Wow.
Okay.
Like an army asleep on the march. By mid-morning, another man had died, and they lifted him from the wagon where he'd stained the sacks he'd laid among, and buried him also, and rode on. There's parts of the story where it feels like I'm not reading about Earth. It feels like I'm reading about some alien world or some description from Dante's Inferno of hell itself. It's strange how the story in your mind can contort to fit whatever McCarthy's trying to get across in almost ways that, the logistics don't matter, especially with characters like the Judge, which we'll talk more about later. He was a metamorphosis to me through the story. The way he looked, the way he behaved. It's so interesting how different descriptions of the same thing can make that thing morph. And it's one of the, I'll talk about this more at the end, but it's one of the reasons it would be very hard to adapt this as a film, because some of the uniqueness of this story is how it lays in your mind. As with any story,
quick
the
question.
unseen element
So for the
is
picture of
elaborated
Judge
on
Holden,
you. And if you have a
how
creative mind,
do they
some
get
of the
that? Like, this isn't like a visual novel or anything,
I
is it?
think it's fan art.
beautiful and terrifying,
Fan art? Oh, okay.
sometimes at the same time. Eventually, as the filibusters are riding through the desert,
Wait, you guys watching
they
this
see
together?
a group of Native Americans ride
We're
up
just
on
listening
them
to
from
it.
Nope.
the plain.
Oh,
I've just seen
okay.
a picture of like Judge
Looks at
Holden
him and says,
online
there's
before.
probably about a dozen there.
Oh.
we'll have some action by the end of the day. Thinking this all
Does anyone happen to have a map out at the moment that I could ask for directions?
the captain and his men
Nor.
Fuck, I'm getting fucking molested by an Enderman.
Straight.
God, what the fuck are y'all up to, dude?
I was
in
trying to
the
build a
same
fucking
cave as
house
you. I don't
in the
even
side of a
remember looking at the
mountain,
fucking
but that didn't really work out.
Alright, quick question. I don't know which direction to go.
Go
Can some...
forward. So turn around. There you go.
Just straight.
There.
Gracia.
And some in headgear of crane feathers or rawhide helmets that bore the horns of bull or buffalo.
That negative 900 on that last stitch.
And one in the armor of a Spanish conquistador. The breastplate and pauldrons deeply dented with old blows of mace or saber done in another country by men whose very bones were dust, and many with their braids spliced up with their hair of other beasts until they trailed upon the ground, and their horses' ears and tails worked with bits of brightly colored cloth, and one whose horse's whole head was painted crimson red, and all the horsemen's faces gaudy and grotesque, with daubings like a company of mounted clowns, deaf hilarious, all howling in a barbarous tongue, and riding down upon them like a horde from a hell more horrible yet than the brimstone land of Christian reckoning, screeching and yammering and clothed in smoke like those vaporous beings in regions beyond right knowing, where the eye wonders and the lip jerks and drools. Oh my God, said the sergeant. One of the critiques I saw people talking about this story, and I guess it's people who just, enter the story with bad faith or whatever, they got to like that part and they quit reading because they thought the depictions of Native Americans was, incorrect or whatever. Just wait to see how McCarthy describes the white men and the Mexican soldiers. It's not favorable towards them either. What he's describing here isn't the difference between white man and native. It's people who are not familiar with this country, with this world they've entered into, and people who are accustomed to it. The description of the Comanches as they're wearing clothing of previous battles and the armor of a Spanish conquistador, a war, a turmoil that
What
is
the fuck just
centuries
happened?
now past. Yet the armor, the remnants of it are still out killing, still part of battle.
Aw, man.
These are people who are bred.
I was wondering if it would still be loud like
against
usual.
the people who do not know what war they're getting
I'll
into.
have a bed.
And because of that, rightfully so,
To
the
skip
I don't
the
have
dawn,
are
all
slaughtered.
users have
The
to be
following
asleep.
paragraphs
Shut the
are
fuck up, bro.
Skip
It's
to
the
dawn,
AI
all
voice.
users
Stop
have to
with
be
the AI
asleep.
text-to-speech
I
shit,
like
man. Why do you
I
do
like
that?
I
Hey,
like
that's hilarious.
of the corpses.
That's hilarious.
If
That's
I
great.
recall correctly, there were
It's a
50
witch.
men who began this
Oh.
journey with Captain White, and at the end
Not
of
really.
this, there are
Oh,
8
okay.
survivors. The kid had survived because early in the battle, his horse was hit with an arrow, and the horse fell. And in the dust and the kid lying on the ground, they didn't see him as the Comanches went through and slaughtered everyone. So the kid, after the battle's over, begins to stumble his way through the desert and eventually comes across another survivor, a man named Sproul. Sproul's arm is laid up in a sash because it was injured during the battle. And at one point, he begins to cough up blood into his fist, and the kid asks if it's from the injury, and Sproul says no, it's because he has tuberculosis, or the consumption as they called it, and he moved out west for his health, which is grimly ironic. So standing there in the middle of the desert, Sproul's like, well, you want to head back? And the kid says, to where? And Sproul says, I don't know, Texas? They've been walking for weeks to get out this far, and they have absolutely nothing out here to save them. So their best guess is to just follow the road. So the men just start walking, and they come across an abandoned town that it seems was also attacked by the Comanches. Also, another point to mention about McCarthy's characterization of
Are you making a fucking
I'm
noise?
not trying to emo game.
the bias
I
McCarthy
think you are.
has is
No,
always
I
don't
the
think we are.
bias
That
the
witch
kid
poisoned
has
me.
within the
I'm
tale.
trying to put stuff in my
Initially, he will
chest.
view some characters
Oh,
as
before you die.
mysterious or righteous,
No,
only for later
it
in
won't
the story
kill
then
him.
to be described as dogmatic or evil. And that's because even though the story is first person
It's
from the kid's
poison.
perspective,
That
he
doesn't
is
scare the shit out of me at all.
follower. So a lot of the world as it's
I mistake,
described
original
is the way
gangsta.
the kid sees it. We also learn information about peoples and groups in the story as the kid and the gang as a whole does. So as there's quotes and pages I read that have to do with terms like savages or barbarians, that is, again, the kid's perspective as he is introduced to this world and its effects. They get to the town and Sproul
There's
decides
another
to hang back
witch.
because his arm's injured, so the kid starts looking
I'm
through
not
the
going
houses.
to fight it.
As he does, he finds some food, but he also finds the charred remains of people who have been burned alive.
Fuck.
And the slaughtered remains of families.
Fuck
As the kid makes his way
you
back to
piece
where
of
Sproul
shit.
was, he looks through the courtyard and the story says, when he returned to the square, Sproul was gone. All about lay in shadow. He crossed the square and mounted the stone steps to the door of the church and entered. Sproul was standing in the vestibule. Long buttresses of light fell from the high windows in the western wall. There were no pews in the church, and the stone floor was heaped with the scalped and naked and partly eaten bodies of some 40 souls who barricaded themselves in this house of God against the heathen. The savages had hacked holes in the roof and shot them down from above, and the floor was littered with arrow shafts where they'd snapped them off to get the clothes from the bodies. The altars had been hauled down and the tabernacle looted, and the great sleeping god of the Mexicans routed from his golden cup. The primitive painted saints in their frames hung cocked on the walls as if an earthquake
Cock.
visited, and a dead Christ
Balls.
with glass fire lay
Boobs.
in the chancel floor.
Personality.
The murder
Personality.
lay in a great pool
Yeah,
of their
personality,
communal
that's-
blood.
That's the
It
right way of
set up
saying it.
into a sort of pudding
Look, how do you make a
across everywhere
fucking
with the tracks of wolves or dogs
blast furnace
along the
again?
edges.
Shit.
It had
You need
dried and
iron.
cracked into a burgundy ceramic.
No, I need iron. Do I need blocks of iron too?
I think you might need some
need a
stone.
furnace.
You might need some
I
I
stone,
have a
just some regular stone.
furnace.
Well, shouldn't it tell you in the crafting menu?
I'm looking. That's.
Try harder.
That is where I'm at. Yes.
Oh, I'm muted. No, Tyler, you
Not
need
looking
smooth
very
stone.
hard.
What?
I got
I said you need smooth stone.
I
Yeah,
have. Oh,
smooth
like
stone,
probably
yeah.
literal smooth stone.
Yeah, like you gotta smelt it and then smelt it again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Landon. I love you.
I tried fucking saying that. But thank you for
I told
clarification.
them.
Across the square
The
and the last
easy
of the
thing.
light, and went down the narrow street.
Searching.
In a doorway, a dead child with 2 buzzards sitting on it. Sproul shoot his good hand at the buzzards, and they batted and hissed and flapped clumsily, but they did not fly. They continue to walk through the desert. Sproul says that his arm is beginning to stink, or in other words, it's infected. The two of them become so thirsty that they begin to hallucinate an oasis in the middle of the desert. They eventually keep walking until they get to a road leading up a cliff face, and around the corner, they see a Mexican soldier, along with a company, riding their way, and at the front, the leader is sitting on Captain White's horse, with Captain White nowhere to be seen. So if, a Mexican soldier is riding White's horse, things aren't looking too good for White. The leader approaches the two and sees that they're thirsty and offers them a drink of water. The two drink as much as they can, hurriedly stealing it back and forth from each other. After giving them the water, the leader says, "When the lambs is lost in the mountain," he said, "they is cry.
When the lambs is lost in the mountain, like that again. Just imagine talking like that because they're Mexicans.
And ran it back where it had come from, and turned the horse smartly and trotted it through the horses behind him, and the men mounted up and followed, and soon all were gone. The leader delivers
Doug
an ominous
Walker.
line about how they need to be wary of the wolves of this country. As they continue to travel through the desert, a wagon of a family of 4 come by, and the two of them effectively hold up the wagon so they can hitch a ride to some place that is in the middle of the desert. So the two of them hop in the wagon, drink most of the family's water, and then sleep the night in the wagon in front of the family's house. The next morning, the kid wakes up to find that Sproul has died of his infection over the night. And then shortly after realizing this, the Mexican army shows up because, the family whose wagon they semi-hijacked called the police. So the soldiers, knowing
Called the
that this
police.
kid is one of the renegade American soldiers who came to mess with Mexico, arrest him and take him into the nearby town. In the town, there is a large parade of people dancing and merchants selling things, and as the soldiers drag the kid through the middle of this party, they throw him on the ground, and when the kid looks up, someone is holding in front of him the severed head of Captain White floating in a jar. The kid spits on the ground and says, "He ain't no kin to me." And of course they would celebrate the death of these guys. They came into their country to just cause problems. When they kill the leader, they're gonna, have a parade about it and, I guess, put his head in a jar. So that's what happens to people who set out to be pirates, but they claim to do it for their own greater purpose, or because they have some greater stake or merit in the world. They die, and their body is made a spectacle, as those around them suffer and bleed as well. So the kid is taken to jail, and then shortly after
Yeah,
that,
I
he
think
is
there's a lot of other
transferred to
people that could have that
Chihuahua
same kind of
City.
treatment.
When he gets to the Chihuahua City jail, who else is also in that jail but his friend Toadvine? Well, I use the term friend kind of loosely. The guy that he tried to kill in a knife fight and then they burnt down a hotel together. So Toadvine's in this jail as well, and because of their brief history, the two develop a sort of camaraderie between each other. There's some brief banter between the two. One of the jail keepers has gold teeth, so Toadvine keeps saying that he wants to kill him so that he can take the gold teeth. They're in a corral for a while that just has like a high wall around the corral, no fence, and these children hop up on the wall and start throwing rocks at him. So the kid just takes like a small stone and chucks it as hard as he can at a kid, and it says it hits the kid in the head. The kid falls over the wall, and they never hear from that kid again. So I guess the kid killed a child with a rock who was just standing at the wall throwing pebbles at him. And then one day, as Toadvine, the kid, and another friend that they met, who is known now as the Veteran, one day as they're out scrubbing the streets of the city, a group of men ride in on horseback and ride into the governor's courtyard. These men are described as absolute monsters. They're barbaric in nature. They're wearing the skins and furs of several different animals. They have knives on their hips that go down to their knee. They have every manner of firearm and bladed weapon you could imagine. Not to mention that most of these men are white, which is particularly strange considering they walked into the governor of Chihuahua City's courtyard dressed as they did with no problem. And who else is riding among them except, foremost among them, outsized and childlike with his naked face,
Oh,
rode the
Redstone
judge.
Dust.
His cheeks
Redstone
were ruddy,
Dust is a bunch
and he was
of like
smiling
wires and
and
shit.
bowing to the ladies
Yep.
and doffing his
I
filthy
like this
hat.
texture pack. It's
The
cool.
enormous dome of his
What is
head,
it called?
when he bared it, was
The realistic
blinding
texture
white and
pack.
perfectly circumscribed about, so that it
Not how
looked
crazy, isn't it?
painted. He and the reeking horde of
Huh.
rabble with him passed on through the stunned streets and hove up before the governor's
Oh,
palace,
hey,
where their leader,
Lapis.
a small black-haired man, clapped for entrance by kicking at the oaken door with his boots. The doors were opened forthwith, and they rode in all, and the doors were closed again. This is, finally, the Glanton Gang. They're
No.
riding into Chihuahua City to deliver their payment of scalps to the governor as per their contract. Toadvine sees this and thinks this might be their ticket out. Sure enough, as they're cleaning the streets the next day, Toadvine managed to talk to a member of the Glanton Gang and gets them an in. See, the Glanton Gang constantly loses members given the nature of their capital. So because of that, they're constantly looking for new people to refill their ranks. Anyone who knows how to fight. So Glanton makes a
dang.
request to the governor, and the three men, Toadvine, the kid, and the veteran, are all released into John Glanton's care. And with that, the kid, Toadvine, and the veteran are now officially and finally for the story members of the Glanton Gang. The child who had nowhere to go, who was willing to join any tribe or people as long as it meant killing and as long as it meant money, has now found the perfect home to do just that. And it seems that by pure chance or perhaps
Yo, I
fate,
found
he
diamond.
has once again crossed paths with the judge himself. This mysterious figure who is set apart in any room that he exists in. So what does that mean for the kid? Does that mean he's finally fit in and found a place that he will exist freely? Or is this going to be a Cormac McCarthy novel? Let's find out. So the three men ride out with the Glanton Gang from the town that they were once prisoners in, now hailed as heroes. Initially, we meet several of the more interesting characters in the gang. It seems to be that there's about 30 of them at this time, And while several of their names are mentioned sparsely throughout the book, I'm just going to talk about a few who are important. Because, spoilers, a lot of people die, so we're just going to be talking about the ones who actually do something. Of course, we have the Judge and Glanton, who we'll talk about more as the story goes on. But there's also members like the ex-priest, Tobin, who joined the gang sometime shortly after the Mexican-American War. Despite being an ex-priest, he still holds some views of God and religion in a place of secrecy, which is very interesting as the gang's actions begin to unfold as the story goes on. There are two men in the company who are both named John Jackson. One of them is a white man and the other is a black man, so the gang refers to them as White Jackson and Black Jackson, respectively. That may be surprising to hear that this gang of headhunters in the 1850s has a black man in their ranks. But as we're going to see, the Glanton gang, save for the Judge, holds no values or morals or any set of rules when it comes to the actions they commit. They are solely soldiers of fortune. There are several instances in the book where they talk about the savagery and evil of the Native American people, and then in the next chapter, ally themselves with them. There are several points in the book whenever someone in town mentions that they don't like Black Jackson being there because he's black, that the gang members will agree with them and talk about how he's the member of an inferior race, only to then turn around and murder the guy that they said that to. They hold no values or morality, at least none that they can't be bought out of. And while it may seem respectable that a gang at the time has a black man in their ranks, it is solely because Black Jackson is also a murderous killer. And that is exactly the kind of men that Glanton needs, not caring for their race, religion, or creed. The gang also has 4 Delaware Indians in their ranks who mostly stick to themselves and don't really interact with the rest of the gang, at least not socially. So while they are out on the plains headhunting Native Americans, there are 4 Native Americans in their ranks. There is a Mexican man in the company whose name is Miguel, but the Americans don't care to pronounce it correctly, so they just call him McGill. There's a scout named Webster who frequently hunts and travels out with the Delawares.
It's just
There's
a
a man
dick
named
move.
David Brown, often called
What?
Davy Brown, who has a intense propensity for violence and seems to relish in a lot of what the gang does, more so than the other members, again, excluding the Judge. And the last member that I'll mention right now is a man named Bathcat, who previously
Bathcat.
lived on
I
the
fuck with
island that
Bathcat.
is today known as Tasmania, where he used to hunt Aboriginal people for sport and for money. So,
Jesus,
coming to the
alright, man.
American West to hunt
He's
Native
also
Americans
very
is the
Irish
normal day
or
in the office
Scottish
for
or
this guy. In
something.
his introduction, it mentions that he wears a
Yeah, those
necklace
people are
of
pretty
human
violent.
ears from people that he's killed. And several members of the gang take pieces of humans as trophies after a killing. In the description for Bathcat, there is a blink and you'll miss it line that prophesies his death. Toadvine and Bathcat are
Oh my
having
God,
a
he's gonna
conversation
die?
about the 2 Jacksons, arguing which is going to kill the other first, because the 2 Jacksons hate each other, probably because they're both named Jackson. Well, it's also mentioned later that White Jackson hates Black Jackson because he's black, but I'm sure having the same name also doesn't help. While they're discussing this, the book says, Toadvine glanced at the man's forehead, but the man's hat was pushed down almost to his eyes. The man smiled and forked the hat back slightly with his thumb. The print of the hat band lay on his forehead like a scar, but there was no mark other. Only on the inside of his lower arm was there tattooed a number, which Toadvine would see in a Chihuahua bathhouse, and again when he would cut down the man's torso where it hung skewered by its heels from a tree limb in the waste of the Pimeria Alta in the fall of that year. Whenever I first read through this, I had to read
think
over
I
that
missed
section a
some.
few times. It's just giving normal descriptions of what the gang members look like, and then it mentions that Bathcat has a tattoo that Toadvine would see again whenever he pulled his corpse that was hung by its heels on a tree in the middle of the desert. Fate is a reoccurring topic in this story that becomes more prevalent as the story goes on. And it's interesting that even in the introduction of this character, his death is already set in stone, as if it was something that was always meant to be. So as the gang is in this small town,
I
they're
did miss
waiting
that,
for
by the way.
Okay.
So it's a good thing I watched this video before I finished the book.
A Colt revolver hammers. In testing out the pistol, Blanton pulls back the hammer and just starts shooting animals that are around the town. He shoots a cat, and it says that the cat explodes.
Tyler's
He shoots
looking
a
at.
chicken. He shoots a goat. And
Bartholomew.
then after looking over the gun, he says, I don't think this is worth $50. So he haggles with the salesman over the price, and it seems that the murder of the animals was completely inconsequential to him or anyone else in the gang. A captain of the Mexican army walks into the center
Make
of
sure
town
it's
because,
good.
you know, these strangers are shooting guns.
Should make
at
Judge
random
Holden
people.
in Red
And
Dead
as soon
Online
as the Mexican captain
start
starts
violently
shooting,
raping
the men
people.
up,
Okay.
the
Jesus,
judge
alright
jumps down
then.
from his horse and immediately
Are
starts
not using
talking
this
to the
footage
captain in
anymore.
Spanish. As they're speaking in Spanish, the judge continues to shake his hand
Well, I
and
never
then
said
walks
that.
the captain through the parade of these killers and introduces all
But I
of
would
them
like
to
to
the
record
captain one by one. Come to find out later in the story, the judge speaks several languages and has been all over
You
the
can
world.
record
In the
anyways.
story, fluently
Oh, Tyler,
speaking
find this.
Dutch,
Look at copyright
German,
struck.
Spanish, and English. As the judge is walking the captain through the group of men, he talks of their bravery and how they're each respectable dignities as the men stand there with human fingers and necklaces of ears.
Respectable
When they get to
dignities,
Black
yes, of course.
Jackson, the captain remarks that it's strange having a black man in their company. So immediately, again in Spanish, the judge launches into a diatribe about how Jackson is part of an inferior race, and how the whites and Mexicans are so much more prosperous, and blah, blah, blah. And Black Jackson, who can't speak Spanish, asks the judge what he's saying, and the judge effectively tells him not to worry about it. Again, the morality of the game is whatever best suits them in the moment. As the men are about to leave the town,
Snap.
a family of performers
Game Group.
comes out to ride with them. See, at the time,
What does that
the
mean?
area that
Is it your
wasn't
world?
immediately
Nope.
in the city
Whose word is it,
jurisdiction of the
Tyler's?
police force
Yep.
was
Yep.
effectively lawless. So if you traveled
I don't
out
care.
by yourself, you were easy prey to
Y'all, is it a
animals
new world or
and
something?
elements,
Or is it
but
that
also
one?
Yep.
robbers
Yep.
and
Oh, it
killers
is?
who may be on the path. So if you
The
were a
old one
family
can
traveling
burn.
for anything, it would be smart to travel
Oh, I have
with
to
a group
put on
of
a
marked people.
texture pack.
So in exchange
Yeah,
for money,
because
because that's all they
someone
care
decided
about,
they needed to make it a
Glanton
little
allows
fancier.
his family of performers to join them through the desert.
Not
I'm
there's
gonna
anything
mention
wrong
it
with
now
that.
because
I just wish it wasn't
comes
so
up a
fucking
lot and I
large.
can't stop at every instance of it.
Did they buff
Nearly
skeletons or
every
something?
time
Jesus
that
Nope.
Christ.
I think they have.
You're just bad.
Because now they're just
They
fucking
are
horrible.
They
Same as you,
shoot
Kyle.
way faster than
They shoot
fucking
way faster
normal.
than they used to. Yeah, okay, so I'm not the only one who's been noticing that, because that's horseshit. They never shot that fast before, now all of a sudden I'm getting my ass kicked left and right.
Well,
Maybe
might
they,
also
like,
just be
fix
the
their
lag.
latency issue.
Because the game's ass, yeah.
Fuck you, sure.
The game is ass.
Setting out on this journey, they find the bones of Apache families
A little
who were
bit.
lined up and shot by Mexican soldiers. Every time
Gold.
that they journey out, there is instances of the
Aw.
world that they inhabit constantly
Aw.
reminding them of what it is. Hanged bodies
Oh,
swinging on the sides of roads.
Well, I'm trying to make a tunnel over to you guys.
Painted on their chest.
Patrick.
Entire cascades of horses and
Sandy.
merchants line the gutters of the roads. Having been
Like that
shot for the crime of being present.
Thanks.
As I talk about the details of the story, just know that death surrounds every
And
aspect of it.
Plankton.
They sit around the fire that night, and Glanton looks at the father of the Mexican family of performers who
Some
he's allowed
baby
to come out with
drowns,
him.
man.
Glanton looks at the
Whiny.
father and asks the man if he tells fortunes. The showrunner's excited and begins to get his family together so that they can perform a fortune telling. They do this by having the father hold a deck of tarot cards in front of one of the gang members.
All the
And as
villagers
he does
are
it,
chilling, I guess.
his wife, who's also one of the performers,
Never
sets
mind,
on a
Mom.
log facing out into the darkness of the desert night. One
Ooh.
of the gang members draws the card, and as they do, the woman begins to cry out into the desert to receive what the fortune of the man is. Black Jackson goes first, and he draws the card, the Fool. As the lady chanting begins to say his fortune in Spanish, Jackson begins to
Is that
ask
why
the
you're
woman at
test
the
those tarot
campfire
cards in
what she's
Phasmophobia?
saying. Also, there are entire conversations.
That's why we have
entirely in
that's why we have
Spanish.
tarot cards
For
in
this
real
book,
life.
Cormac McCarthy learned Spanish just so he
Yeah,
could
they made
read the
it.
records
Well,
easier
yeah, I know
and
that they're
also
for
give
telling
accurate
fucking
depictions
fortunes.
of,
Thanks for pointing that out,
Mexican
Captain Obvious.
speech.
But,
And also, while I'm
I
mentioning
mean, you
it,
know, you're the one who's reading the
McCarthy
fucking
wrote
book.
this over the course of 15 years and moved to El Paso, Texas to do so, having traced the route of the
Brett,
Glanton
you're supposed to
gang
back me up, not
several
insult me.
times during his time writing it.
What?
Historians have read the novel and remarked that it's about as historically accurate as a book can get. Anyway, so Black Jackson is standing around the fire, and he first asks Tobin, the ex-priest, what the woman's saying. Tobin says that this is all idolatry and witchcraft, and he doesn't want to be a part of it. Eventually, the judge smiles at
Real?
Jackson
No, I
and
don't.
says that what this woman is
This is
saying
a load of
is that in
barnacles.
Jackson's fortune lie all of theirs.
Okay, I really don't like the
fire.
fucking bees. I don't like the bees, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I don't like the bees.
I love the bees.
I'm not a huge fan of the
Diorite.
bees.
Diorite, my beloved.
Here seems to be that Jackson is in a position to
Oh shit, that's water. That's
That's
water.
permission for me to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, bitch.
Yeah, he's a hypocrite. He's a hypocrite.
Yeah, alright. Well, I'll do it next time.
Watch this.
Watch this shit. 74.
He begins to get kind of scared and nervous, and he looks over at the judge, who's partially naked, by the way. He's naked from the waist
Yeah, that
down.
makes a lot of sense.
He does that every time they set camp. He just takes his shirt off and he just sits there with his fucking breasticles hanging out.
Me when I see Cameron.
The kid looks around the rest of the campfire and sees that no one else is laughing, and
Yes,
tells
you,
the showman
Cameron.
to get away. So the showman stops. The Four of Cups is most often associated with stagnation or a lack of purpose, which is very fitting for the kid at this point. He joined the military and a group of crazed killers.
I did know that. I
just because
googled
their
that when I read that part in the
with no
book.
regard
You googled
for his
that, you
life
didn't
or
know
the
it.
life of others.
I didn't know what the Four of Cups meant.
It seems that
I don't
those
either.
choices
I figured it was like,
Yeah, I don't either.
you know, important, so I googled it.
It might just be important,
At
or
work.
it might not. At work, you were doing this on the
Yeah, I
fucking
I
clock?
read at work because I'm a fucking
Dude, what
faggot.
the fuck? Why, dude? Why were you doing shit on the clock like that? Like, you're that's fucked up. Tyler.
Yeah, you're getting paid for
Less
this
on
shit.
the clock doesn't
If
matter.
Judson Nafy yells at me for reading a book instead of being on my phone, how much of an idiot will that make him look?
No, dude.
You're not doing your job, though,
You're,
so.
you're not doing
You're
your
there to
job,
work,
yeah.
Tyler.
You're there to work, you're not there to have fun.
Yeah.
Ugh, we are
I'm
not
here
here
to-
to work.
I'm here to get
Joseph
paid, and I'm
knows
not
all
getting
about
much
it.
of
Yeah.
it, so...
Fair enough.
You want me to work? Give everyone else their hours back, bitch.
Well, that's not really their problem.
Actually, it is. It is completely my problem. It's the
Why?
whole reason I'm working in the office this week anyway.
See, up until this point, every time that someone draws a card, the showman has been reading the card out loud so that his wife can tell their fortune with it.
Chubby
Blanton
monkey
rose.
ass.
She raised her jaw, gibbering at the night. Shut her up, said Blanton. La Corosa, cried the beldam. Invertido, carta de guerra, de ganta, la vicine,
Real.
ruda sobre un rio obscuro. Blanton called to her, and she paused as if she
He's
heard
better
him,
at saying
but it was
Spanish
not
than I
her.
would think for a
She
little
seemed to
country
catch
boy.
some new drift in her refinements.
I think it's fine.
So how's your Spanish,
In late day?
Tyler?
Awesome.
Got one night, Jay.
Oh.
There's more grimacing than...
Oh, I made 14 fucking levers.
Oh, because you're retarded.
Yeah. I'll remember that.
Oh, I don't have any coal.
Go get some.
That is hilarious. I have some coal.
Yeah, I got
I
some
have some
coal over
coal.
here, man.
Hey, Bo, I got coal.
I'm gonna drown.
I'm gonna join this world just to grief it.
What the
No.
fuck is it?
I'm gonna kill everybody. Get grief, nerd.
Boom, boom, boom.
I'm gonna
I
spawn
could
the
stop
wither.
blazing in this bloody tune.
Why do creepers look like that?
Because Tyler
Touch your
fucked him up
pets.
pretty good.
Shine bright like a diamond.
Diamonds! More diamonds. More diamonds.
I got one diamond.
Should mine straight down.
If you can craft, you can mine. Or use a sword, you decide.
There's diamonds here left.
He begins to draw his gun, threatening to shoot.
Liar.
The judge stops him. I can explain what this treatment of the knife might mean.
You can make a diamond pickaxe now.
If its points revealed later in the story. So with
Oh,
that,
one.
next day, the gang continued
Well, you got 2 more, 3 more, so shut up.
with a few of the scouts who had been ahead to
There's a reason I said it. Punch that redstone, more lighting.
Webster and a couple of the Nell
Alright,
boys
there.
come back with an old woman. This old
Jump in
woman
that lava.
was an old Apache woman who was left behind at
Do you have any
the
armor?
park in some ways up the road. The woman is so old
Alright,
that she
whatever.
can barely walk, and she trembles to herself and shakes, barely looking at the knees of the men around her. This portion's particularly graphic, but I find it important to read, considering it sets the tone and several of the events that will soon follow. Glennon crossed in front of his horse, passing the reins behind his back. Watch her, Cap, she bites. She had raised her eyes to the level of his knees. Glennon pushed the horse back.
What was
and
that
took one of the
behind
heavy
you?
saddle pistols from his
Look at all those
scabbard.
ores.
Watch yourself there. Several of
That
the
was
men
it.
stepped back.
Alright, dude. Don't. Alright, I'm fucking.
It's not even
Whatever.
important.
I'm not playing this.
He
Alright.
pointed with his left
You are such a crybaby, actually. You always want to make fun of me for being a crybaby, but you don't want to
I
play
asked you like 4 different things and not a
Random
single
texture
answer,
pack?
bro.
I don't know. Use your brain.
Oh, yeah, no.
Use your brain.
No responses. Play a better game.
Man, better game like what?
I'm not gonna say.
Overwatch?
No,
Yeah,
man.
Overwatch is
No.
totally a better game.
No.
Solitary of his race in that company came forward. Get that receipt for us. He took a skinny knife from his belt and stepped to where the old woman lay, took up her hair and twisted it about his wrist, and passed the blade of the knife about her skull and ripped away the scalp. It says after this that no one in the company was paying any attention to what's going on, none except for the new recruits. Because this is the nature of blood money. This is the nature of what the economy for killing was at this time. Didn't matter how old or feeble they were, combatants or not, you were paid for native scalps. And it didn't matter who those scalps came off of. And everyone's okay with this. It's just the nature of their business. And if anything, an elderly woman who can't fight back is just an easy paycheck. Or a receipt, as Glanton refers to her scalp. The violence continues throughout the story, and I'm not going to read every instance of it verbatim because it's a lot. There's several people who love this book who talk about how they couldn't read it on the first sit through. And
I'm not a pussy.
It's certainly brutal, but I feel it is entirely not only justified, but needed. There are so many tragedies, and not just world history, but
Wait,
specifically
who the fuck
American
is Step
history,
Bro?
that get overridden
Cameron.
as a statistic.
Oh,
We
Cameron's
hear
muted
both
though.
in school and movies about these men
Cameron,
of
you
the
there?
Wild West who would
Yeah,
hunt
Cameron's
down the
muted.
natives, or they would fight back
You've been muted since
against,
I got
you
here.
know, the no
He's not
good
talking for me.
outlaws of the country. And we kind of just
Oh, yeah,
brush
he's
them
muted,
off
that's
as
why.
numbers.
Well,
But
you know what? Fuck you
whenever
too.
we
Let
hear
him beat
something
himself.
like
He's
so
mudded.
many people killed in a
Oh,
battle,
my TV's mudded.
or
Oh, my TV's
scouts
fucking
that were
mudded.
sold for cash, or people hanged on the side of roads. I think it's important
Ree!
that we don't lose the brutality of that. Like McCarthy here certainly has not. This book came out in 1985. Highlight on how brutal the nature of manhunting actually is.
The
It's
game
not
doesn't
heroes
fucking
with
work. The game
swelling
fucking
music
sucks.
and a chiseled jawline
It
fighting
almost
back
just fucking
against
killed me for no
people who
fucking
matter less
reason
than
because
him.
it can't
It is
fucking
most
figure out
often
where I'm at.
These monstrous, almost animalistic people who prey on the weakest targets they can find. And to emphasize the historic and thematic evil of the story, the violence matters. The performers separate from them in this next town, and the men walk into a bar. While in there, an old man begins to cryptically talk about how Mexico is a dangerous country and how these men are heroes, but there is a cowboy on the plains who's looking to kill them, vaguely referring to death or the devil or some concept similar. And the entire time they're in this bar, there is a man
Moaning plankton. Real.
Okay, so no. Okay, so it's not just. All right. Well, that's fucking cool. Can you? Can you still hear me, Bugs?
I watched you on the kill feed.
I fucking
Did not hear
died?
you though.
I fucking died?
I saw that.
Really? Oh, well. Okay.
Oh, I
Fucking
think
figures.
he-
Game's
There
great.
he goes.
And it fucking crashed.
I see that.
Man, you know, I
You,
really feel like this game's really fucking improved. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
All the changes are so much better. I'm...
Yeah, get the PS5 edition.
Yeah, go pay another $20.
It might be
You
better.
need to play
It
another
might not.
$20. I'm playing the PS5
Yeah, the
version of it right now.
edition.
I'm fine.
Are you? I'm playing on the 4.
I'm
There you
playing on
go.
the 4. I don't have the 5.
You don't have a PS5?
No. Yeah, I don't have
So what we gonna do about it?
PS5 edition.
There are constant signs that they should stop this journey before they begin it. And the men
Oh shit, there's a
continue to
PS5
ignore
edition.
these signs
I didn't
every
realize there was
morning.
one.
Well, at least one of them
Not paying
picked up
for
on
it.